Good morning. Welcome, bright and early. I'm Anita Lee, Chief Programming Officer here at TIFF. I am joined by Jeff Minocton, TIFF's Vice President, Industry and Theatrical. We are so thrilled to be here this morning to kick off this year's industry conference presented by Christie Digital at the 50th Toronto International Film Festival, presented by Rogers. We hope you are very, very caffeinated and ready to be inspired by our lineup of incredible speakers. This 5-day event is just one part of an overall offering each year to support Canadian and international professionals who look to TIFF as a platform for business development, networking, and education. In addition to the conference, we have an incredible lineup of industry screenings, development programs, networking events, business-to-business opportunities that our teams have curated and produced for you. We hope that you use your time here to connect, explore, and engage with our overall offering. A very big thank you to the industry team for the incredible programming that they've shaped, to CBC for generously hosting us in this beautiful space year after year, as well as all the volunteers and teams here at TIFF who make what we do possible.
Hello, everyone. As Anita mentioned, I'm Jeff McNaughton. Thanks so much for coming out. If this is your first conference, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Over the next 5 days, we will be inspired by visionaries like Donna Langley, Sterling Harjo, and Edward Berger. We will create space for dialogues between those pushing boundaries in animation, comedy, shorts, and independent production. Our perspective sessions will tackle subjects including best practices in accessibility, as well as the changing landscapes of both LATAM and MENA cinema. We'll also have some exciting special events presented by our partners at IndieWire, Deadline, The Ankler, and The Wrap, including speakers like Ryan Johnson, Glenn Close, and Mae Martin. Companies speaking include Neon, Sony, Fremantle, NBCU, CJ Entertainment, Meta, and more. We'll also be presenting our Sloan Science and Technology Pitch event, which is back for its 3rd year.
This year marks a banner year for TIFF. We celebrate our 50th edition and lay the groundwork for TIFF The Market, launching in September 10th, 2026. To get a glimpse of what we've been developing, please use your industry accreditation and visit our TIFF The Market showroom experience located at 301 Adelaide Street West, just a block north of TIFF Lifebox. Ask any volunteer, they can let you know how to get there. The showroom is open for discovery from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. from September 4th to 10th. We've also recently announced our new market head, Charles Tremblay. Charles began his career as a lawyer before joining UTA. He then co-founded Metropole Films Distribution, launched MK2 Mild End in 2017, and next led Spear Films as president before moving to his most recent senior role as senior advisor at Mubi in Canada. We're absolutely thrilled to have Charles join the leadership team here at TIFF. The Market turns into a reality in 2026 and is supported by $23 million in investment from the Government of Canada and supported by our major supporter, Telefilm Canada.
Our exciting industry programming is made possible by the support of our major industry supporters, Ontario Creates. Before our first session, we'd like to welcome Jillian Fizette, Program Consultant, Industry Development at Ontario Creates, to the stage to say a few words.
Thank you, Anita, and thank you, Jeff, for the warm welcome. And good morning, everyone. First off, what a festival to mark a 50th anniversary milestone. Once again, the team at TIFF have put together an amazing program. This year's world-class lineup of films is rivaled really only by the top-notch industry program. It is a great honor that I'm here today on behalf of Karen Thornstone, Ontario Creates CEO, and the rest of the Ontario Creates team to welcome you to the 2025 TIFF Industry Conference. We are proud to be a longtime supporter of TIFF and the industry program at the festival. Ontario Creates supports growth and investment in the publishing, music, and screen-based sectors through a range of financial incentives and collaborations in international marketplaces like TIFF. And these sectors are big business for Ontario. In fact, altogether, Ontario Creates supported sectors contributed almost $4 billion to Ontario's economy last year and every year. Our reputation as a global leader is a result of our deep capacity and globally competitive infrastructure, crews, talent, equipment supply, and production support. We are also proud to lead the Ontario Green Screen program with many valued industry partners. If you're not already doing business with Ontario, we invite you to check out ontariocreates.ca or visit us this week and next week at the Industry Centre. In addition to the Ontario-made content that we supported through tax credits and our film commission, we are thrilled that a record-breaking 13 films screening at this year's festival were supported by our investment programs. This year also marks an important milestone for us, the 20th edition of Ontario Creates Globally Outstanding International Financing Forum, IFF as the TIFF team calls it, and IF as we call it, and we're thrilled to be delivering it this year in very close partnership with TIFF. Impressively, 170 projects launched at IF have been successfully financed and produced, with many more in late stages of development. I encourage you to check out this year's selected projects at our website. Ontario Creates is excited to expand IF's extraordinary success in partnership and collaboration with TIFF, the market, next year in 2026. But in the meantime, I wish you all a great festival and a wonderful TIFF 25 industry conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. It's my great pleasure to introduce our first session of the conference, The Changing Landscape of Distribution, presented by the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences, and supported by Rolex. Our programming is made possible by the support of all our sponsors and partners. A sincere thank you to our presenting sponsor, Rogers, our major sponsors, RBC and Visa, our major industry supporters, Ontario Creates and Telefilm Canada. And now, to introduce the session and our guests, please welcome Academy CEO Bill Kramer to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bill Kramer, CEO of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and we're thrilled to be here today at the TIFF Industry Conference to introduce this Academy conversation. For those of you that don't know, the Academy is a nonprofit organization with a mission to celebrate artistry and innovation in cinema. Our global membership comprises more than 11,000 of the most accomplished global artists and leaders in our film industry. We have many members with us here today, including our new president, Lynette Howe-Taylor. And I want to take a moment to thank our partner, Rolex, for their continued support across the Academy. Their commitment spans across Academy programs, including the Oscars, our Governor's Awards, our Student Academy Awards, our Academy Museum, and all of our international outreach, including today's conversation. We're also so grateful to TIFF, to Cameron, to Anita, to Jeff, and to the entire TIFF team for their incredible support of our work and the work of our global film industry. Our panel today centers on a topic that has been of great interest to all of us over the past few years: the changing landscape of distribution. The evolution of our industry to now include technology and new media companies has greatly impacted how audiences engage with movies. Increased viewing on streaming, the rise of engagement on social media, all of this has put the theatrical experience in a challenged position. This has prompted the industry to rethink distribution and acquisition strategies and to discover new ways to support theatrical while adapting to changing audience behaviors. I'm thrilled that we have 4 Academy members here with us today that come from different parts of the industry and the globe. They will discuss how filmmakers and distributors are navigating these changes and ensuring that their films reach global audiences. Joining us for this conversation are Michèle Halberstadt, Head of Acquisitions and Productions at ARP Selection. Yes, Michèle. Dylan Leiner, EVP of Acquisitions, Production, and Business Affairs at Sony Pictures Classics. and Ryan Werner, President of Global Cinema at Neon. Guiding us through this conversation is Anita Lee, Chief Programming Officer at TIFF. Please join me in welcoming everyone to the stage and enjoy the conversation. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning. So very, very exciting. I think we've got three of the most experienced expertise on this panel this morning, and I'm sure so many are very, very excited to hear from them. I have some questions that I will be asking them, and hopefully we will have about 15 minutes for a Q&A afterwards as well. And, of course, I'm asking these questions, but, please, make them your own. Feel free to disagree, because we all know two things can be true. And, please impart your wisdom whenever you feel you would like to. So just putting that open. And so we're going to start right away so that we get as much time with our panelists this morning. So I might start with Michèle right in the middle there, and we're going to ask the same question for all three panelists as we move along. So very broadly in the beginning, we're all aware there's been significant technological changes in the industry over the last decade. What has shifted your company's approach to distribution, and what are you doing to reach as wide an audience as possible in this new landscape?
A lot of things have changed. Obviously, lockdown was a big part of the changes. I don't think it provoked any change. I think it accelerated the changes that were already there, especially the fascination of people for streaming and for staying home. It's true for restaurants. You can see they're closing at night because they only do deliveries. People stay home. People want to be home. They said that the bedrooms is a new living room, and it kind of affects all these areas of culture, including cinema. So what can you do? Just be aware of it. And I think the changes make us they have to make us be even more curious, daring, original. I think to get people out of their comfortable rooms and go to the movies, you have to offer something that's different, that they can feel, oh, this one's going to be an experience. This one I want to see with my friends. This one is worth going out. That's the whole thing. How do you get them out of their homes to go to the movies? So you have to find stories that are new, different, new voices, new way of telling stories. It's always about stories anyway. For us at ARP, it's always been about stories, but who tell them? How do they tell them? Are you affected by them? Feel-good movies are not enough nowadays, I feel. So you really have to find subject matters, visions that are different. And of course it affects the way you market them. I don't think people in France, at least we don't spend on outside postering as we used to. Of course we spend a lot on social medias, trailers and everything, but I think also, even more than before, what matters is the theater. Spend in theater, show your trailers in theater. At least people who've come to theater and see your trailer, they're already there. They know what the experience is. And if they see a good movie, they will come back. And if your trailer is exciting, they might want to see the movie. I really think it pushes us to our boundaries and to remind us what the business of cinema is about, which is going to the theater and see something different. That's about it.
Mm-hmm. Dylan, your company has been a long tradition of theatrical distribution. Would you also agree, and what have perhaps been intentional changes that you've had to take on?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that you mentioned these big changes over the last 10 years. Well, what was sort of in place 10 years ago isn't necessarily in place 5 years ago and isn't in place now. So the level of acceleration we're seeing is on a yearly, if not a monthly basis, right? Everything is evolving all the time. I think this turnout is representative of what we're seeing right now in the theatrical distribution business. People want to get out. People want to be together, more so than they did a year ago, more so than they did in 2023. And I was just looking the other day at like our own, like the trajectory of our own grosses and who's going to the theater. And the first half of 2025 was better than 2024. 2024 was better than 2023, which was better than 2022, and then we had lost those 2 years during COVID. But we're seeing this sort of ascent of and return of the theatrical distribution business in a way that all three of our companies are really leaning into it in a major way. So, so first of all, very optimistic and very excited about where things are going. As a company, our focus and our bullseye has never wavered. It has always been theatrical first. What has changed is that while every marketing campaign has always been bespoke for the 34 years of Sony Classics' existence, it is so revolutionary how it has changed with every movie now. I mean, every single film. When you look at what we did with Becoming Led Zeppelin, we put tickets on sale for that movie 2 months before the film was to come out, right? So it was promoted almost like a concert event. It premiered on IMAX screens only for an entire week and then went wide on other screens. When we released I'm Still Here, we were on over 700 screens for a Portuguese language film, third weekend. That had never happened before. So every one of these movies is so unique. We have movies coming up that we're going to be releasing on a few screens, others that we're going to be releasing on over 1,500 screens. And so it is this incredible puzzle of trying to figure out what works and how to engage the audience. But the other thing, which I think we're going to talk about, I'm sure, is the changing face of the audience. My mother, who is now approaching 80, used to go to 1 or 2 movies a week. She was our torchbearer in the theatrical landscape, and now she goes to 1 movie every 4 to 6 months. But people in our office in their 20s are going to 1 or 2 movies a week, and they're going to Sony Classics movies and Neon movies and the kind of movies that ARP does. So everything is shifting, and actually, more than the changing landscape, I think it is the evolution of a landscape, the transitional period of an existing landscape. And so I feel like this is just another evolution of our business and an evolution in the direction that we all want it to go in.
That's really positive hearing from your perch at Sony Pictures Classics. And I have to say, for us at TIFF Lightbox as well, we have noticed those, moments that you're speaking about. We're really seeing younger audiences coming back and our art house films performing really well. So lovely to hear that hopefulness. And I'm going to go over to Ryan to see whether you also see that from your perch at Neon.
I do. I live in New York, and the first New York Film Festival after COVID and things started reopening, I noticed like this crazy shift. Like the audience had always been pretty old, and it was like night and day. It was a much younger audience, and I was really shocked. And I think during the COVID lockdown, a lot of people watched movies at home and became really excited about classic cinema and just directors. And I think the rise of Letterboxd actually helped create this community also. But I do think there is this very engaged young audience that's very excited about directors and films from all over the world. I think another positive change is with international cinema. Streaming services like Netflix, which have films available in every language, have helped really change the way people watch films and TV in a really positive way, so that you can actually think about international subtitled films really having a much bigger audience in the U.S.
It's interesting how different it is in Europe when I listen to both of you, because subtitles have not been a problem in France, for example, since at least 20 years, I think. Now people really want to see a subtitle movie. Definitely streaming helped in that direction, but it was never like in the US a problem. It was always easy to see subtitles film in France. And after lockdown, I think we were the best country in the world in terms of people going back to the theater. And like you said, it was not the older people who came back, although they had the vaccine first, and also they would come back first. But no, it's a younger group. But that younger group is very volatile. It's very hard to know what they want to see. The one who are cinephiles, young cinephiles, are very highbrow and not necessarily in a big number. There are also less big American movies that drives young audience. So the ground is really shifting, and we really have to. It's now, in a way, each film has its own story and his own way. As you were saying, Dylan, how to promote. Each film is really a different landscape on its own. And that's really interesting. For example, there was a French movie that nobody believed in, based on a very popular book, but the movie was really tough. And it opened really not well. And then all of a sudden on TikTok, girls started talking about the movie. And all of a sudden that movie became a sensation in a month. Nobody knew where it came from, not even the producers nor the distributors. It just happened by itself. So the interesting thing is you cannot really predict anything anymore, even less than before. And I was reading a piece in Variety, I think, saying that usually from the first weekend you knew exactly what the future of a movie in terms of a box office was going to be, and now it's really the second weekend, because you can open really well and die really fast. All these things are new to us.
Well, there's something else really interesting about what you're saying. We used to also really focus on the weekends. And we're finding now that a lot of people go to movies during the week. And so sometimes you can't gauge a movie, sometimes even by the first 2 weekends, right? Because people are, especially older people, are choosing to go. Sometimes it's like discount Tuesdays. Sometimes they just want to go when it's, go after work. And so there's this, people are going, talking about staying home on the weekends. People do want to be at home on the weekends, but during the week, that's when people are going out a little bit more. The other thing I want to say is about the marketing. So one of the things I think that is causing this younger audience to show up now is that the marketing is based on social media. It's not this traditional kind of printed ad in the New York Times. It's all social media, but it's also the way that the filmmakers are engaging their own audience. It's sort of paralleling this content creator culture that we have now. And when we're involved with producing, financing, even pre-buying films, we're helping to orchestrate some of that. And when we were involved with, Michèle was involved with Nouvelle Vague. We were involved with Richard Linklater's other film that he shot last year, Blue Moon. And when on set, there was a lot of engagement from the talent with, doing interviews and certain kind of special shoots, even though it was only a 15-day shoot. And so there was all these assets to use to market the movie. And so movies are becoming parts of people's individual lives, individual DNAs, in ways that are investing them earlier in going to see films.
Yeah, you have to be inventive all the time. For example, on Nouvelle Vague, we open in October, and it's really a cast of unknown people, unknown actors. It's their first job, nearly for all of them, French young actors. So what we did is ask the 5 main characters to post little videos, 2 minutes video, telling stories, how they got chosen, what they remember from the shooting, the first time they met with Linklater. Little personal anecdotes, which are now turning around on the internet and are really very, very popular, because I guess for young people who want to be in the movies, all of a sudden it's there, it's possible. It's not those faraway stars, it's guys like them who all of a sudden turned up at a casting call and were chosen and made a movie. So it's also a way to make cinema part of their daily lives. I know Godard said that cinema you look up, but you don't have to look up at the actors. You can look at them as equals. And I think that's also a way of putting cinema back in your lives. It's not this faraway dream, it can be your life.
Absolutely. You know, we're also really seeing, you know, I think as you all spoke to, you know, platforms like Letterboxd, we feel, again, you know, at TIFF Lightbox, you know, we're booking international independent films all year. It almost feels like, you know, we can go to Letterboxd and see what starts trending in the conversation. And that's the greatest indicator now for us, how successful a film is actually going to be in the Lightbox and how long it will run, despite, you know, any level of significant marketing that may or may not exist for that film. So, you know, absolutely, we are seeing that kind of trend.
I mean, it also starts at festivals. Like the Letterboxd stuff, you can really track from the beginning at festivals. Like, I think people are very tuned into what wins at various festivals like Cannes or Venice. The People's Choice Award here, it really drives a lot of attention and helps set up a big expectation for audiences. So that's become important, especially as, you know, in the US, there's so many less critics than there used to be. And I think that social media, in a way, is, you know, helped create like one voice, like this movie is good, versus like individual voices that might push forward. There's still a lot of very important critics, but I think for economic reasons, it's been much harder for as many critics to be working today.
Absolutely. We talked quite a bit already about audience behavior, and obviously, you know, that really goes hand in hand with, I think, the changing landscape that we're talking about. The Academy is unique in that it celebrates all aspects of the filmmaking process and all genres, covering animation, documentary, and live action. You all also work across genres. Any thoughts in terms of, you know, through lines, genres, you know, impacting filmmakers in terms of reaching audiences? So, you know, any noticeable new changes in terms of certain genre and impact in audience?
I was just going to say, I think in animation there's something exciting. Like, it seems like there's a much more engaged global audience for animation from all over the world. Last year I worked on the movie Flow, and I was really amazed by how many like narrative filmmakers told me how much they loved it, and really were incredibly supportive of the film. And I think it's a big part of how that film beat The Wild Robot, which everyone thought was going to win. But I also, yeah, I just think that there's a trend also in the last few years at the Academy that like independent films have been doing very well. So I think it's exciting. I think you're seeing like huge box office, like Demon Slayer seems like it's going to be huge shortly, and we have a movie called Arco that's in the festival that we're very excited about.
I'd like to add to that, just it was touched on, but also older movies, you know, because I think that one of the big challenges now is for people's time, right? And so one of the big differences I see now, when I moved to New York in the early 90s and started working in the business, there was a real desire for discovery, and I would go to the Angelica, I would go to Lincoln Plaza, and just sort of trust the programming. And now it's more destination viewing. You know, people want to know that their time is going to be spent well. And so, you know, a reissue of Whiplash, a reissue of Old Boy, a reissue of, you know, Crouching Tiger, Run Lola Run, those are working because people, they either want to revisit those films or they've heard of them, and it's like part of their collector ideology. And so we're seeing a real bump in those kind of movies, and I think that's also contributing to the popularity of then first-run films, because it's a way for people to catch up on a director's work and then see their new work, and it's part of the theatrical experience as well. So I think that, in addition to definitely anime movies, and you know, we are seeing certain trends, and they're becoming part and parcel of the developing culture.
You know, we really saw, you know, when we launched TIFF one year with The Boy and the Hare, and, just the mass fandom and excitement that caused. And it really opened our eyes to the fact, again, I think a younger audience, especially in their 20s, that, anime in particular, but all kinds of animation, were really kind of main programming for that generation growing up, and they hadn't actually seen it reflected, I think, in festivals and other types of cultural institutions in that same way. And more recently, as we're bringing in more anime and animation, we are really seeing an incredible excitement for it.
Not necessarily true in France. Animation, yes. Rerun of old movies, absolutely not. That's gone. And even, for example, when you have the Joachim Trier, which came out, they did a rerun of his previous film the weeks before. It did nothing. I mean, it's like reruns are for platform or television or home video, anyway, but not theater. It's really strange. But it used to be big American movies, which are working less and less. Independent American movie, that's a trend that's gone, really.
Did
that's
Jaws
very scary.
Jaws get a release for its 50th anniversary?
Not for the moment.
Okay.
And horror films, thriller. For example, we opened Exit 8, which is playing here. We opened that 2 days ago. It's doing well. That's the kind of film people like. Horror film, yes. Animation, it depends. It's very hard in France when it's not animation for children. We still have this idea that animation is for grandchildren and their grandparents, And adult animation, it's coming. Yeah, Flow was great, but these are still exceptions to the rule. It's really difficult. Documentaries in theater very rarely work. But we have a strong local culture of French cinema, and those really always work better than any others. So it's very different. It's a very different culture.
One of the things that's always been interesting to me about anime in particular, and we have an anime film here called Scarlet, which is also really wonderful, is how they don't rely on traditional linear narratives, right? This kind of this elliptical narrative, and the audience seems to really love that and be engaged with that, where they don't have to be. They go to a Hollywood movie for A plus B equals C, but sometimes in these anime movies, your sort of brain wanders and flows differently, and that seems to be part of the appeal of the theatrical experience with an anime movie too, and it mirrors what they experience in graphic novels and comics and things.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is really fascinating, I think, the differences, across the continents. Michèle, you mentioned that sort of American Hollywood films are not doing as well. What do you think are the reasons for that?
Well, I guess it's like in the US, all those sequel. After a while, people are tired of them. It's very simple. People want to have new stuff, They want to see something different. It has to stop, How many numbers can you do of the same story?
So we've spoken quite a bit, and it's great to hear the hopefulness around the theatrical experience for younger audiences. There's, I think, sort of a widespread, maybe it's becoming a little bit of a myth that this generation that's grown up with only streaming, isn't interested in the theatrical experience, but it does feel like we're saying it's on the rise. That's very positive. Along with sort of a younger generation, there's also a bit of a concern that the shifting economies will create fewer opportunities for emerging and underrepresented filmmakers. In an era where risk avoidance is the talk of Hollywood, and maybe that's why we get the sequels over and over again, how does the balance between maintaining fiscal efficiency and amplifying bold voices impact your approach to acquisitions? Maybe I'll start with Ryan.
I think for underrepresented filmmakers, I think one of the exciting things is like what seems to work in theaters is an experience that you've never had before. So there's often stories that come along that you are blown away by, and that actually can do business because they're rarely seen in cinemas. So I think, that's something we're always looking for, and definitely there's so many films here, so very curious to see what's playing this year.
Yes. Anyone else in terms of the landscape for emerging voices, underrepresented voices, or very risk-taking filmmaking?
It's really a problem of financing. I mean, technically, making a movie has never been easier. You can take an iPhone and go shoot a movie. But now, how do you finance a movie? That's something different. And I mean, I could take the example of Nouvelle Vague because it was such an obvious example of nobody wanted to make this movie. It was turned down everywhere, in the US and in France. Black and white, unknown cast, Godard. These are 3 kisses of death to any financiers. No, it's true, honestly. It was the case. And I understand them. It's not an obvious thing. But again, if you're not bold and original, you don't get anywhere. So it's a question of risk-taking and daring. Again, if you look at Nouvelle Vague at the time, it didn't cost a lot of money to go and shoot this movie, Breathless. And I'm sure there are many Breathless in the waiting. If you have something to say, and a telephone, and a few friends you can do movies with, they will get somewhere. They can get to you. But if you go to the traditional way of filmmaking and financing, it is very difficult because it's a risky business, and it's always easier to say no than to say yes, because nobody will go back at you saying, why did you say no to this movie? It's never your fault. We can understand why you said no. But if you said yes and it's a bomb, you will never be forgiven. So people want to keep their jobs. I understand. But that's the nature of the business. So it's always a question of trying to see how much risk you can take. And I really believe there are a lot of movies that are way too expensive, that don't deserve to cost what they cost. And I think we should, and I can see that in France. We're all really now very careful because we're getting less and less support from television, because Canal+, which used to pay a lot of money to French cinema, doesn't anymore, and they don't buy foreign films anymore. So each move you take now, you really have to make sure you really want this movie, you really want to buy this movie, you really believe in it, or you really want to make it. And the people who make it have to make it for less money and more energy. I think it really brings you back to your roots of why am I making this movie? Why am I buying this movie? Why do I really, really believe there is an audience for this movie? It's not products, it's personal. It has to be personal to the people who make them and the people who sell them and the people who bring them to the audience. And believe me, the audience feels that. I believe really that when a movie is made for all the right reason and has the right energies, those energies gets to the audience.
I think one of the concepts that's important is collaboration. And I think this is a stage that represents a lot of globalism here. And I think that making films has always been a collaborative effort, and I think it is more than ever. And I think that that is the way to benefit underrepresented voices and all voices, because making movies is difficult and it is expensive. And so if you can find creative ways, we have a film that we released called Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight. First film, and Beth Davids directed it and produced it with her husband. And she has a small role in the movie, but otherwise it's all unknown actors. They made it very low budget in South Africa, creatively financed. We have a movie playing here, a gala, The Coral, that was done with, we have worldwide rights on it, but it was made with collaboration from, 2 entities and a tax subsidy in the UK. All these movies need to be creatively put together with the personnel, with the financing, and it comes down to collaboration. And I think that is also what you're talking about, Michèle. The audience can feel when it is a collaborative labor and a labor of love. And I think that's alternative cinema. Alternative cinema has always been the alternative to Hollywood. And I think even Hollywood films now are made, collaboratively, the most interesting ones. And I think that is sort of the key to this, and it's the way to promote these movies. And it's also, and what I was talking about with the marketing, as the films are being made, for the filmmakers to show the audience what it is that went into making of the film, so that the audience already feels invested in it. They feel part of it, and when they start, choosing what movie to go to, they remember that film, that has become part of their personal, story. So.
Absolutely. And, all of you here, very integral in terms of showcasing global cinema. For myself as well, I really came of age in terms of my cinema education in the 90s, and I feel like Sony Pictures Classics, it was sort of the whole library that I sort of, grew up on. And so it really shows, I think also, you have such power in terms of what you acquire and what you actually offer to audiences. And with that, I'm going to open it up to some audience questions. And so please raise your hand. I see a first hand going up right there, so yes.
Although our film didn't get accepted in TIFF, we've been accepted in 57 film festivals and award festivals. We've won 27 awards. We've got name actors in it, Tuck Watkins, Ray Santiago, Thomas Becker. We cannot seem to get the attention of distribution companies or sales agents. So how do we, and we've been picked as the centerpiece film in 3 of the largest LGBTQ festivals in the world, Atlanta, San Diego, Palm Springs. How do we cut through the noise to get y'all's attention?
Well, may I?
Yes. Did everyone hear the question? Okay. The question is a film that has been invited to many key film festivals, received a lot of attention, but still struggling to get distribution. How do you land distribution, cut through the noise?
Well, first of all, I think that, first of all, congratulations, because it sounds like you've done a lot of legwork already. And not to put more legwork on you, but there are not that many, distribution companies that are working with these kind of films anymore. The good news is there are several new ones. There are constantly these new companies that are evolving. 1-2 Special, Metrograph unfortunately just closed, but things are popping up, new opportunities. But there are a lot of opportunities for self-release too. Okay, and that does add cost, that does add logistics to the process, but that there is, and actually Ryan, when he was at Cinetic, was involved with a couple of self-released films. One in particular did very well last year. So, but the point is that sometimes what people are doing now is they're actually building into their budget a little P&A fund, or I always thought if I were to produce a movie, I would have my A plan, which is, you go to, TIFF or Sundance and you get a great first run distributor, but you have to have a B plan too, which is, how are you going to, self-release it somehow, and who are the companies you might want to interface with, who can you hire? There are a lot of freelance people that can book theaters for you, that can help you get, and you can bifurcate your rights. And then what is your C plan? I mean, we live in that kind of an environment now, just like we live in that kind of an economy where you have to have multiple plans. And it sounds like your film actually has built a lot of support and a lot of laurels for your poster. And so there are ways to get that movie out there, but you're going to have to pivot. And I wouldn't wait around for a traditional distributor to sort of discover the movie. If it hasn't happened yet or you can't get it through, change direction.
Okay. Yes, right there, your hand up. Yes. Yes.
I would love to know what you think the cost of a movie ticket at the theater might be having impact-wise on audiences actually going to the theater. Because I think we all agree it's gotten a little expensive to go out.
Question is, do you think the cost of a movie ticket is actually having an impact on theater attendance?
Yes, I do. In France, definitely. I'm sure it is, yeah.
I think for sure it makes people consider, you definitely want to see the movie, and it makes you look at social media and reviews and talk to people that might have seen it. And I think there are things in the U.S. there's AMC stubs and where you can just pay a monthly fee and see a lot of movies. So there's a lot of actually good deals with theaters. There's a lot of membership programs that make it less expensive, but it's definitely a huge factor.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Martin. My wife and I come from Los Angeles. We only come here just to learn from you when we saw the ad. And our question is, we've gone to make 2 successful independent movies. DSLR camera. We get distribution with Film Hub. We're on Amazon, we're on Tubi, Roku, and we have a big market here in Canada. But as we're starting to really do big and make our third film, Fox by Tubi. And I feel like the gatekeeping of an independent company with distribution is doing well, but the big companies keep gobbling up the little companies, and I feel like it's gatekeeping. Do you think that to be true? Because we're making the movies and we're making some money, but now the big companies say, all right, this is successful, let's go chop up the little guys. And like you said, it's hard to find distribution, a good distribution, because the big boys keep gobbling them up. So what would you do? Because Fox just bought Tubi, and like I said, we are really trending all over with our independent film.
So I think the question is that, we're seeing big companies buying up smaller companies, really kind of, centralizing, the distribution landscape. Do you think that's true? And perhaps what can independent producers do in such a case?
Sure. Consolidation is constantly happening. It's true. I think it opens up more opportunities. This is why we're seeing some independent distributors deciding to start, to open their doors, because there are a lot of movies that don't get distribution, which means there's a lot of opportunity for distributors if they have the right game plan. And I think that, first of all, I think the theatrical release of a movie is really what drives awareness. So back to this earlier question, and we're seeing that with the major streamers too, right? If streamers, Netflix bought Nouvelle Vague. I don't know what their plan is in the US for distribution.
Well, they're going to do 2 weeks theatrical, and they want to keep on showing the film theatrically while it plays on Netflix, and they're doing 20 cities showing the film in 35mm prints.
So,
definitely, there was this trend during lockdown that, who cares about theater anymore? So all of a sudden, all the movies were going straight to the platform, but they realized you still need marketing, you still need awareness, you still need word of mouth, or the movie don't exist. And so they went back to opening the window to theatrical. And I think the clever thing is to have it on both the platform and theatrical. And I think, we were talking about audiences. There's one thing people don't forget. We talk about young people, about old people, but then you have that generation. If you look at the statistics, as soon as a young couple has a kid, they stop going to the movies because they can't. So if they have that film that just came out in the theater, if they can have it at home, they would go and see it at home. They would go to the theater if they had the time, but the ticket plus the nanny, it's too much, so they would love to see it at home. I remember we had this movie, Peninsula, that opened right after lockdown, before lockdown. So all of a sudden you had the video available, and the theaters calling us and saying, we never played it because of lockdown, could we play it? So it played both on video and theatrical, and it worked on both. And I think this is a problem we have in France, which is the windows are very strictly protected. But I think it's, unfortunately, the movies are paying the price for that, because audiences, you can feel like going out today and not tomorrow and still see a movie there and a movie here. And why prevent people from watching movies? That's really an issue. So you're talking about distribution, but we have this problem of windows that you have much more freedom showing a movie everywhere, however.
And the other thing too is that you have to remember, in your market, if you four-walled a theater, I'm just saying, you got your friends and family, even did one screening, you could amplify that on social media and give yourself some visibility and profile that then helps you, in transactional VOD and maybe to get an SVOD or an AVOD deal, right? So think about, even in just your local area, do a little bit of a road show. There are ways to sort of, to kind of make the audience aware of your film and do it in a way that, and you keep control over everything. And you'll learn a lot about that. That'll then feed into your next film too, so.
Yeah, it sounds like, what we're really saying is that, a lot of the traditional frameworks of sort of theatrical and platform, as well as, just traditional marketing windows. You know, a lot of this is collapsing. So it seems like as independent producers, filmmakers, really to take agency, you know, and really promote your work, you know, within the spaces that are currently available. Yes, I'm going to take a question over here.
Of course, whenever you're trying to define films, if you're looking at what's happening right now in the industry, by the time you create and distribute it, that is old news and already past the zeitgeist. So you have to have a lot of foresight with how you're deciding what films to distribute, to acquire. So I want to ask, of course you don't want to say where you see things are going now, but how do you learn that foresight? What has attributed to learning that foresight so you can understand where the zeitgeist is going? So by the time you make the film, you're hopefully able to achieve that.
Okay, so then the question is just, you know, you really need to forecast and have foresight and you know, understand the zeitgeist and where things are going, and, you know, how do you sort of attune to that in making your decisions? I'm going to ask Ryan, because I feel like, you know, Neon and Ryan himself have really been, you know, I think huge successes, I think, having this kind of foresight and awards, you know, in that landscape.
I mean, it's like the question everybody asks because it's like, you really don't know. I think it really comes from watching so many movies over the years, really like paying attention to the life cycles of like what happens to a movie when it premieres at a festival, and like just seeing different patterns over the years. I think the more you do it, the better you get at it, but it's like an impossible thing to really ever like say there's a specific answer. Otherwise we'd all be like really rich. And, so I mean, but it is like, you know, I think it starts with seeing a vision of something that you haven't seen before, something that is going to connect to like what's happening in the world, and something that people really respond to, I think, emotionally. But it's a challenging situation for sure.
So it feels like it always does come back to that sort of alchemy of many things: originality, relevance, something that resonates, and emotional at the same time.
I think just to go back to the other question, like one of the really inspiring stories of the last year was that movie Hundreds of Beavers. I don't know if you've seen it, but like that's an amazing self-distribution story, like where it's such a crazy movie and they really roadshowed it and made it into an event at every theater that they took it to, and it just became like this really big deal. And I think that's kind of inspiring.
I'll take one last question. I'm going to take it in the back there, in the very back.
Hello. What are the names of the smaller, newer companies that are looking to prioritize, you know, emerging filmmakers in Canada and U.S.?
The question is, what are some of the companies that are prioritizing emerging filmmakers in the U.S. and Canada? Maybe in the U.S. for this audience, and in Europe as well.
I think in the U.S., Dylan mentioned 1-2 Special. Oscilloscope is like a company that does great films by filmmakers from all over the world that I think are really special. Janus Films is another company that does a lot of new filmmakers and emerging filmmakers from around the world.
Kino is continuing to, you know, to do that, and they have their own platform, so they can kind of promote on both ways.
Sony Classics and Neon.
Yeah, we are. We do. We do. I think strand releasing is a mainstay and always reliable. And then there are these other, you know, sort of bookers that you can work with. I mean, Abramarama, M. Tuckman Media, who else, Ryan? You know, people that you can go to, you can kind of put together, it's a series of, you know, conversations that you have to have with people to get the right names. But if you get a sort of distribution person, many of them who have worked at other bigger companies, alongside a publicist, alongside a sort of a little bit of a fund, you can kind of put together your own plan. So
I think it's also sometimes like there's theaters in New York, like Film Forum and IFC Center, that will book a film without a distributor. Like there's a film by Julia Lakhtav out right now called My Undesirable Friends, which she didn't have a distributor. It got some of the best reviews of any film this year, and now it's being booked by an independent program booker. But I also think like one thing, like in my previous job at Cinetic, where I was like working as a publicist, like it was all like, one of the things that we would really do is try to find films that were special without distribution and really help try to elevate them in a very big way at festivals, make them as buzzy and noisy as possible, talk to distributors like Dylan about them before the festival, talk to other programmers at other festivals. So I think finding advocates for yourself as you're bringing your film into the world is very important. And also people will do it for not a lot. Like there were definitely a lot of films that I worked on that like we did for very, very little money. Just really because we believed in the filmmakers and loved the films. And a lot of times it really paid off because, they would make many other films and, we'd be along for the ride.
I know we're wrapping up, but just very quickly, I'm going to ask each of you maybe just like one sentence, one piece of advice that you would give the audience here today. And maybe I'll start with you, Michèle. One sentence.
Open your eyes.
Open your eyes.
Yeah, go look for something you don't know. Open your eyes. Just don't go to stories you know. Open your eyes and your ears and your heart to stories you don't know. Be curious. Open your eyes and, be curious.
Dylan, over to you.
be in the weeds. I think what you see with all three of us here is that we're very much in the weeds, in the trenches, in every aspect of the business. I mean, Michèle on Nouvelle Vague, she was translating between an English-speaking director and the French cast, as well as, distributing the movie. She's here with her husband and partner, Laurent, he's in the weeds. He got up early to come and do this, to watch this panel, and he oversees the distribution for all their films. Ryan is on the marketing side, the acquisition side, and, I'm involved with all sorts of aspects at our company. And I think as people in the industry and as filmmakers, the more you know, the better you will be in all aspects of what you want to pursue and what you want to be doing.
Be in the weeds.
I would say stick to your values. I mean, cinema is an incredible, powerful form of art that can really inspire people. I feel really proud with some of the filmmakers I'm working with this year. Kleber Mendoza, an amazing Brazilian filmmaker who, has made a movie about living under an authoritarian regime. Jafar Panahi, the amazing Iranian filmmaker who is really stood up to the Iranian regime. And I think, I think these are two examples of filmmakers that have used their struggles to really make great art. So I think stick to your values.
Amazing, and stick to your values. So really inspiring words, I think, coming from these panelists. I know sometimes, it's hard with all the noise and, box office and revenue, et cetera, but what I'm hearing here is open your eyes, take risks, be in the weeds, do your work, get the knowledge that you need, and ultimately stick to your values. So thank you so much.
Thank you.